Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to Source Material Live. I'm your host, your substitute host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And yep, Jesse is still essential. He'll come back to his show someday when you're all alone. He'll come back eventually when he's less essential. In the meantime, you can hear the early beginnings of Source Material on syndicated Source Material, where he cleans up, edits the first 100 or so source materials that actually never made it on to W2M. So that's fun. That's where you get to hear Jesse. And occasionally I drag him out of his essentialness to be here on a Metal Hammer of Doom or a TV party or something. But him not being here opens up Source Material Live, because God knows I don't edit, to me being able to bring on all manner of guests and all kinds of great people to talk about the books that they're passionate about. And here to share his passions with you is the great Evan Bevins. How do you do, sir?
I'm feeling a little intimidated by that intro, but try to whip my passion into a frenzy.
Yeah, man. You know,
are we talking about Squirrel Girl?
Let me tell you, just as an aside to people listening to this who did not see the post, when Jesse put up that picture of Squirrel Girl beats up the Marvel Universe, I literally just threw my hands up and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting anywhere near that one because the line to be on that show is going to be 100 people deep.
And I will be camping out. I've already pitched my tent.
Yeah, we'll eventually get you on to do Squirrel Girl because I know that's one of your favorite characters. But I brought you on last year to do a comic strip for Umbrella Academy, and that was half a scheduling issue and half, a lot of Apocalypse Suite was adapted into the first season, so it's fine. One of the things we talked about when we did that comic strip was Cha-Cha and... what's the other character's name?
Hazel
and Cha-Cha, who did not appear in Apocalypse Suite but are all over Season 1. And you said, just wait, they're all over Dallas, which is the second miniseries from under the Umbrella Academy umbrella. So take me back to when you were reading these contemporaneously.
Well, I read the first one a long time before the show ever came out, just because I was curious about Gerard Way writing it, even though I think I've read more issues of Umbrella Academy than I have heard songs from My Chemical Romance. And that includes their guest appearance on Yo Gabba Gabba. So yeah, I read it, and then when the Netflix show came on, I read it again, and was like, "Hey Mark, hey Jesse, you guys should let me talk about this one because I've actually read it." So then I think it was after the show that I actually jumped back into Volume 2. It was one of those, I'll go back and revisit that someday. And so I was I read that and found out where Hazel and Cha-Cha came from. I don't know what detour they took on their way to the show to come up with how they were portrayed on there, but I went back and read this one. And then you said, hey, you want to talk about Umbrella Academy Volume 2? And I said, sure. And then I realized I didn't remember much about it, so I had to go back and read it again.
So this is
not a commentary on the comic. That's just I'm forgetful sometimes.
So is this the third time through it for you? Did I count that right?
Second time through Volume 2.
Okay, second time through. Did it make any more sense the first time you read it?
I'm not sure, but just as I was getting all my stuff together to talk about it and opening it up, I put together, like we were talking about before you started recording, that I recognized who the president was on the first page. So I put a lot of stuff together just glancing at the first pages again. And by a lot of stuff, I mean like two things.
Okay. Well, this is my first time reading this, obviously. I actually was not familiar with Gerard Way. I forgot he was in My Chemical Romance. That's much research I did on this. I literally was just like, well, we haven't done Volume 2 yet. That's as far as this went for me.
There you go.
So I remember talking about Apocalypse Suite, just so we can sum that up real quick. And I remember the conversation you and I were having about it, brief as it was was that it was a little hard to follow. I recognized some of the stuff from the book, but it definitely went in its own direction. Like, the show takes smatterings and ideas from the comic and then makes it so that it's, entertaining for television watchers. It's not too off-putting. The book, however, like a lot of comic books are, has no such compulsions. It's just all over the map. Characters are doing all kinds of crazy things, and then the art doesn't help. The art is... Gosh, how would you describe the art? Because because if I say juvenile, that almost sounds like I'm trying to be insulting, and it's like, that's not really where I'm going with this. It's just, it's not clean.
My first instinct is cartoonish, and then very gruesome all of a sudden. So gruesomely cartoonish, which I think, I mean, there's some places where, I'm kind of like, what, why are they doing this? And other times where it's like, it's really effective to see something that you wouldn't expect in that style. I mean, the art doesn't scream grim and gritty and super serious, and then there's innards flying everywhere. And so it's, whether you're into that sort of thing or not, it's pretty striking in places.
Yeah. I have to say, just right off the top, I did my Goodreads little review of it today, for Twitter. Kind of put out there that we were talking about the book tonight. And it's always like a one-sentence kind of remark that I'll make when I do those things. And this one was, I have no idea what I just read. And there's, I have no idea what I just read, and I had an awful time reading it. And there's, I have no idea what I just read, but hey, I had a fun time while reading it, whatever this was. This was kind of the latter. When I went back and read the summaries of each thing, I'm like, oh, okay, that fills in some of the gaps that I was struggling with. And I'll have those. We'll read through those summaries as we go through each issue. But I do remember thinking, like, this is written in such a bizarre way that it's a little hard to follow at times. But what I'm, watching number 5 slaughter endless thousands of faceless goons never stops being funny to me.
And he's drawn so much younger in here. I mean, even exaggeratedly so compared to, the kid that played him on the show, who did a great job. But I mean, it's even more jarring on here because that kid was probably as young as you want to be doing some of the horrible things number 5 does. This looks like a toddler, just wreaking havoc.
Yeah, this is like if they put Stewie in a fancy knickerbockers and and just let him run roughshod, which is fine. It's one of the I've never been one to say comic books. I mean, I've complained that, like, why can't villains just rob a bank anymore? I don't mind getting surreal and silly and out there and out of the box. I just need to be able to kind of follow what's happening. And so this is a bizarre comic book, but it works. It's fun.
And I think I mentioned on the last one, I hadn't read it the first time I read Umbrella Academy Volume 1, but going back, you can see he's very much influenced by Gerard Way's very much influenced by Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, which I read after that. Then I went back and read Umbrella Academy. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have. I mean, he's not copying it, but it's just that, just out of the blue, completely absurd, weird superpowers, villains that seem to make no sense and yet kind of work at the same time. Goldfish on a robot body, that kind of thing.
Having discussed 2 different books of Doom Patrol with Chris Sheehan, like, I get the appeal of Doom Patrol, and I get how that would influence this. And no, I don't think this is a copy of Doom Patrol. I think the space in which Doom Patrol operates is really, really big. And when you're mining the all bets are off, anything you can do anything you want, anything it's kind of like you give a kid just a bunch of broken toys, and like, here, make new toys out of these garbage ones, and then they do, and they come up with really wacky and fascinating ideas and figures and whatnot, and that's Doom Patrol and that's Umbrella Academy. It's it's a kid's imagination with absolutely no parameters. So, and that kid's a psycho.
A little bit, yeah.
Issue number 1, The Jungle. The first issue was released on November 26, 2008. In a flashback, the young Umbrella Academy battled a now-living statue of Abraham Lincoln, because of course they are, as part of a deal between their adoptive father, Hargreaves, and President John F. Kennedy. Following the events of Apocalypse Suite, Kraken has taken more of a leadership stance on the team, as Spaceboy has become morbidly obese due to depression. By the way, I didn't even recognize that was Spaceboy at first.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, even though I read the comics first, I have a lot of the TV show characters in my head, so it's still, because they didn't go full gorilla on the show, so some of it is kind of jarring.
Yeah, it took me a minute to realize, like, when I read one of the summaries, like, oh, that's Spaceboy. Okay. I don't remember him being mostly gorilla, but sure. It's been a while since I've read this.
Oh, yeah.
The rumor, unable to use her reality-shifting powers due to the severing of her vocal cords, which I vaguely remembered, holds a grudge against a now paralyzed and amnesiac white violin, who I very much remembered. That's Ellen Page in the show, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. Sorry, what is he going by now? Ethan, is it?
Elliot
Page. Number 5 is hunted by men in gas masks, which we talked about. After a battle from which number 5 emerges the victor, a survivor manages to request the intervention of Hazel and Cha-Cha, to which number 5 responds with horror. And so when I read this earlier today, and I saw, send out Hazel and Cha-Cha, I'm like, oh, that's right. Evan warned me that they were going to be all over this book.
Yeah, and it was really after that, just bloodbath in the parking lot with the faceless minions. To see number 5 go, we're already dead, when he's that dangerous, and to see someone like actually frighten him really gives you an idea of gives you an idea of what they might be up against. I don't think anybody could have predicted what Hazel and Cha-Cha actually are in this, but it's like Deadpool all hopped up on chocolate frosted sugar bombs or whatever. But yeah, that was a cool way to introduce them, because you just watch how completely brutal and unstoppable number 5 is, even beyond his time shifting powers, and he's like, well, we're screwed.
Yeah, this is a character who's usually cool as a cucumber and 10 steps ahead of everybody else, and you can see a palpable sense of dread in his face. One of the things I wanted to note about the art in this is that they really did a good job, as simple as the art tends to be, of making him look truly frightened.
Yeah. Very much so. I in that first issue, I don't know, this one took a little while to get started for me, and I don't know if it's because I was reading again, so I kind of knew where it was headed, but just kind of setting the table. I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a lot of meat on the bone of this issue.
No, it's just kind of kickstarting things. I think if you had an editor that said, "Hey, how about we do this in 4 or 5 issues?" This could have been. You could have cut some of this and just sort of added it into one of the other issues and sort of, just changed the way this was laid out a bit.
Yeah. But I was reading the trade, and he actually conceived this as a single issue when it started out.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure not all the beats were in it, but yeah, he said it was initially they were kind of split up and lost in time, and had just done something really shocking in Dallas.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil it, Although, and it took me until I flipped it open again, but there's a pretty big foreshadowing in that Abraham Lincoln fight at the beginning that I just completely missed the second time through, and then I flipped it open, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, you'll have to share with me as we go through, because I don't know what you're talking about. But again, I sometimes sometimes the artwork makes what's happening in a scene a little unreadable for me. So I kind of just I'll kind of look at it and go, this looks like they threw paint on the page, and I need to move on. Issue number 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it works in some places, but it's pretty stylized. I mean, there's a lot of artists that like I can tell they're good artists, but the style just doesn't work for me. And I mean, this one, it works for this story. I'm not sure I would like this art in other stories.
We for the Super Blog book club that we do, which is like, you know, a monthly, semi-monthly gathering of bloggers and me. We read a book, and everybody contributes to a single blog post about said book. And the book that we did this past month was Dead Body Road. Chris is editing it now, and it'll be out shortly on the blog. And that's one of the people were talking about the art in Dead Body Road, and I said it's just very simple. But I think the consensus on the art, which is where I was going with this, was that the simplicity of the art lended itself well to the material, and that sometimes simple art really, really works. I'm trying to think of another one where it was, very minimalist kind of art, and it worked well for that kind of story. Mm-hmm. And other times, you have something like The Boys, which is like really vivid, very sharp lines. Everything is got very intricate detail. They may not all look like people, but at least but it is complex art as opposed to simple art.
Right.
Second issue, Boy Scouts, released on December 24th, 2008. Hazel and Cha-Cha, two time-traveling serial killers who wear oversized cartoon animal masks, because of course they do, are at a diner eating pie. Hazel asks, what's in it? Okay, so are you like Christian and have never seen movies before?
Oh, no. I watch lots of movies.
Okay, so do you remember in Once Upon a Time in Mexico?
I didn't watch that one.
Fuck me running. Goddamn white people never watching good movies. All right, so there's a scene in Once Upon a... Have you seen any of the Mexico trilogy or the El Mariachi trilogy, however it's known?
No, but I saw the Mexican.
Have you seen El Mariachi?
No.
Have you seen Desperado?
No.
All right. So in the third one with Johnny Depp,
okay,
which is called Once Upon a Time in Mexico, he plays like a CIA agent.
Okay.
And he's in a Mexican cantina, and he's eating, I think it's like pulled pork or something, like rojo or rojo pork or something like that. I can't remember what the exact dish he's eating, but it's really good, and here's why I know that and why I'm referencing it now. He's talking to whoever it is he's talking to, and he was like, this pork is so good, I have to now go shoot the cook to keep balance in the universe, because that's what I do.
Okay.
If I can find that scene on YouTube, I'm just going to send it to you. It's one of the only memorable things about that movie that, 'cause the first two are great. The third one goes off the fucking cliff. But that's a really funny scene. In any case, what happens next in the comic book reminded me of that, because Hazel asks what's in it, but the cook won't tell them. The cook finally explains his encounter with a businessman from Barcelona, offering $5,000 for the recipe, which was refused, and the cook had told him that he'd have to chop off his arms and legs in order to get the recipe out of him. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So he's now bleeding to death and has no arms or legs, Lieutenant Dan. Meanwhile, the Kraken encounters Lupo in his office at the police station, and he is skimming through photos of a massacre caused by Number 5 and is questioned about Number 5. Kraken is clueless about his brother's whereabouts. The Kraken returns home and is infuriated at Spaceboy. The Rumor discovers the Monocle's monocle, and with it, Number 5. The Seance is captured by Hazel and Cha-Cha, who wants to use him to locate Number 5. Now, I've talked a lot, and I've made my obligatory movie reference of the night. What did you think of issue number 2?
Issue 2 is the one that I had like the least notes on. I mean, that opening scene with Hazel and Cha-Cha, I mean, I guess it tells you who you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like it was supposed to be funny, and it wasn't.
Yeah, so he's sitting there, and he's bleeding out and all of this other stuff, and you hear him, you see him in the background mumbling, "We use canned apples." Like, that's the punchline.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it tells you they're brutal. It gives you some idea of why Number 5 was so scared of him, but I don't know. It was too goofy to be. I mean, it was disturbing, but it was too goofy for me to be like, oh my gosh, this is horrific. and it was too horrific for me to go, oh, haha, these guys are crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to know what they were going after there, because
Yeah.
it definitely sets up an appropriate amount of menace, but it's handled like it's a very. You referenced Deadpool before, and that's kind of what that's kind of what I got from it too. Now that you mention it, was that it was a very much like, here's an over the top violent thing, but it'll be undercut with humor, so you won't know what to make of it.
Yeah, but it really didn't. I don't know. It really didn't work either way. So I guess if confusion and ambivalence is what they were going for, well, mission accomplished. But yeah, the only thing, the part that really stuck out to me, other than we have the appearance of this Mr. Perseus guy, who I assume is going to be important in the third volume, because he doesn't really do anything here, was let's see. Oh, when Seance, better known as Klaus to viewers, is talking to Space Boy and trying to, telling him he's trying to figure out what number 5 is up to, and he said, Space Boy says, "You're so paranoid, you probably think Mom is plotting to take over the world, or the Milkman is an intergalactic assassin." And Kraken's like, "Oh, the Milkman got a DUI 6 years ago, but just had some AA meetings and a safe driving course." I'm like, that was just a great aside that tells you exactly how paranoid he is. With you don't need to know that, like Batman, he's got plans to defeat every other member of the team or anything like that. It was just never did an extensive background check on Mom, but you raise an interesting question. That was a good way to show how nuts he is. And then once we get to the monkey dressed as Marilyn Monroe singing to number 5, that's another scene that I really don't know where to go. Although, again, in retrospect, it's foreshadowing where this is all headed.
There's a part of me that thinks that, like, they have the bones of the story written out, and then there's a lot of just sitting around a writer's room table going, what else do you want to see in this book? How about a monkey dressed as Marilyn Monroe singing Happy Birthday? Yep, throw it in there. Do you know where it would go? Does it really matter?
Sounds plausible.
Find a spot in the story between plot points we agreed upon had to be there, and just put your monkey there.
There you go.
All right, now we start to get to the meat of things here. Issue number 3, Television, or Are You There, God? It's me, Klaus. January 28, 2009. The chapter starts with Seance inside of a television left on by the obese Space Boy who is asleep on the couch. As Seance is trying to tell Space Boy that he will be killed, the television then breaks and Space Boy wakes up. The Seance was communicating with Space Boy through the television, and Hazel and Cha-Cha found out, breaking the television. After some words about Seance's shoes and powers are exchanged by the three, Cha-Cha puts a gun to Seance's head. The Seance tries to pay his way out of his situation with money or hooker amputees. But Hazel and Cha-Cha state they have all they want. That is, the nukes referred to in the first issue's flashback.
Which I missed.
Yeah,
I saw it the second time around, but I didn't read these all in one sitting, so I was like, oh, yeah, sure, he had nukes.
Yeah, I missed it when I saw it the first time, and I read it here, and then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, cool. Hazel then shoots the Seance. Number 5 starts to tell the rumor about his time in the future, in which he left out major details. During his travel back to the present, he was captured by the Temps Aternalis, an agency that preserves the time continuum and recruits anomalies like number 5 and puts them to work. He was changed through numerous surgeries and training, which explains much of his skills and other abilities he acquires through the series. Number 5 was considered the best and was specially trained by Shubunkin Goldfish Carmichael, with a genius-level intellect to handle specific individuals. Number 5 was then assigned to assassinate President Kennedy, but rebelled. Did we get a rational explanation for why he didn't kill President Kennedy when he was supposed to?
I don't remember. I was, as far as rational explanations go, I was pleased that they explained, kind of how he he was so detached from killing, as opposed to just your standard comic book. Hey, murder is fun. But yeah, I guess there were some cracks because he he becomes very affectionate about the dog.
Mm-hmm.
After he's basically bragging about what a great killer he is, and how he how he was designated for this assignment and then decided to rebel. Then he looks down and goes, "That's one cute puppy."
They do that a lot with him, where again it's very Stewie-ish, where he's 70% homicidal, sociopathic murderer, and like 30% cute baby who does cute baby things.
Yeah. But yeah, now that you mention it, I don't know that they explained why he rebelled. Maybe he just got tired of people, pushing his buttons or pulling his strings. I don't. I didn't catch that if it was in there.
That certainly seems to be the case with a lot of these kinds of stories where so-and-so is recruited to be a killing machine, and at some point either meets a person who causes them to have a crisis of conscience, or they have a crisis of conscience. It all gets to be too much. They feel like their humanity is gone, and so they just have to stop. I just saw this in Nobody, where Bob Odenkirk starts talking about, for years I was an auditor. Are you going to go see this if I spoil the movie?
I do plan on watching it, actually.
Okay. I will only say what's in the trailer. For years I was an auditor, but I gave it up to start a family, and then of course there's that funny line, I may have overcorrected. It's that sort of thing where you get to most people will get to a point, and I think this is why it's such a trope in fiction, where the idea of killing everybody you're ever going to meet in life, it just isn't appealing anymore. Mm-hmm. At some point people just feel the need to stop fighting. Even Rambo went home, and then was subsequently picked on by the West Virginia police, and then he killed them all. But that's but it starts off with he was done with the war. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that was the what a cute puppy bit was his. I've still got a tiny bit of humanity in here, although throughout the rest of the series, he definitely shows more concern for the dog than the people, which is not necessarily an emotion I can't understand. But
yeah, also very familiar in these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it was the great philosopher Sven from Frozen who said mooses are better than people.
Reindeer.
And
it was Kristoff.
I was close.
Jeez, all right, Mark, don't you watch any movies?
I suck. Space. Look, I watch a lot of movies. I don't remember any of their names.
Gotcha. Understood.
That's why I have to refer to Johnny Depp by his real name, because God forbid, I don't remember his character. Hoy. I just know he had to shoot the cook to balance the universe. Spaceboy flies to where the seance was held and finds him dead. An electric prod handled by Hazel shocks Spaceboy, believing that it killed him. The seance, on the other hand, is seen in a perception of heaven. Oh, this was super surreal. With a figure implied to be God who is depicted as a cowboy. The cowboy implies that the Umbrella Academy is a modern-day incarnation of the Messiah and tells Klaus that he is to return to Earth. Carmichael appears and talks with Number 5. Number 5 threatens his former officer. That is, until he states that he has his biological mother in the eyes of two agents that can kill her if he doesn't finish the Kennedy assassination. Allison is reluctant to travel along, but Carmichael responds by informing them that Number 5's biological mother had twins, revealing that 5 has a biological twin sibling. All right, so
who I immediately assumed to be Allison.
Yeah, that was. I thought that was heavily implied.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's definitely what you're supposed to think.
Any other thoughts about this particular issue?
I could have done without God's a foul-mouthed cowboy who doesn't like us.
Can we talk about that for just 1 second? Where that whole thing is depicted as a black and white sketch, and I kind of thought that's he's talking to God just from the way that it's done. But I had to go back and do the summary. I'm like, okay, that's what that was supposed to be. Why? Why does the Umbrella Academy have to be the incarnation of the Messiah? What? How? In what way are they in any? Like, does anyone?
I did not get that from it at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading this and I'm like, modern day incarnation of the Messiah who was about peace and love, and that I will make a great sacrifice so that man is made better. The fuck does that have to do with the goddamn Umbrella Academy?
Yeah, I did not get that at all. It reminded me of you ever hear the song when you were a kid, Found a Peanut?
Go on.
Found a peanut, and it goes on and the singer decides to eat the peanut. They get sick, they die, they go to heaven, and then the refrain is couldn't take me, and then so they say went the other way, didn't want me. And then it starts over with, I woke up, found a peanut. It's a really dark song. Did any of that ring a bell?
Not a lick of it.
Okay, well, just Google it, because I don't think you want your listeners to hear me sing anymore. But the idea was somebody finds a peanut, gets sick, dies, and neither heaven or hell will take them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I got here. I wrote it off as this was how Klaus perceived his death or near-death experience, not that this was actually God. Of course, I'm not one of these people that thinks you should never address religion or anything in it, but this just felt kind of like a, ha-ha, there's no God or he doesn't care. That may not be at all what the writer was going for. But it just didn't rub me the right way, so I just was like, well, this is whatever happened in Klaus's brain while a bullet was passing through it, and I don't have to pay any more attention to it.
So, Evan, you read a lot of comic books, yeah?
I do.
Okay. Do you find that there are certain comic book writers in certain books where they try to take on, like, a very heady, philosophical topic? It might be religion, it might be something metaphysical. Either way, they are absolutely overreaching, and like they think they're sounding smart and being super out of the box and fourth dimensional, but it just sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, and they're not as smart as they think they are. Because I find that's a common thing in comics.
I see that. I do see. We talked about that. Gerard Way is obviously influenced by Grant Morrison, and Morrison has done some really cool stuff with that. The best portrayal of Christianity I've ever seen in a comic was in like 2 pages he did in JLA, and he's not a Christian that I know of, but he just he was respectful. But it's So sometimes it seems like they're like, well, here this is my take on everything. And I guess maybe if you're inclined to think that way, you think, oh, okay, I get it. But other times it just comes across as, okay, can we get back to the flying and punching?
Yeah, I know. I can't remember the books offhand, but I know Chris Sheehan and I have talked a couple of times over the past year that he's been helping me out with the show. That there's a handful of things that we have read where we're both like, we just want to punch the writer in the face. Like, just fucking stop, dude. You are the smartest stripper in the room. We get it. And speaking of strippers, it is about that time to pay some bills. And I don't know, and I don't know about you, Evan Bevins. You're a professional writer. You are living my dream. Did I ever tell you that you are out there and you're being a journalist and a writer, and people pay you for what you think and what you write, and how that's what I wanted to be, but instead I put crazy people on suicide watch. That's what I ended up doing. But you actually compose the written word, and you report on the world and the nature of man, and people pay you to do this. And the question is, do you use Grammarly to help? What's Grammarly?
Tell me more about Grammarly, Mark.
Oh, perfect. Well, Grammarly has AI-powered products that help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar and punctuation and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. Did you know about... clearly you didn't, because you had to ask me what it was, but doesn't that sound wonderful, Evan Bevins?
It does. I actually did hear about it just the other day while listening to syndicated source material.
Aha!
So I was thinking, hey, that might be worth looking into, especially with don't you guys have a code to download it?
You can actually, if you're not entirely sure if Grammarly will work for you, you can do getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network, and you can have a free 30 days to try Grammarly with all of your internet writings. Isn't that great?
That does sound great.
Alrighty. Issue number 4.
Which has the best cover out of the bunch, let me just say.
Alexis Hannah once asked me, could you make your advertisements and ad reads more obvious? And I was like, oh, yeah, totally. I could absolutely not try with these. Issue number 4, A Perfect Life, which was released on February 25th, 2009. The issue begins in a dream of space boys illustrating a perfect life. I really like this, by the way, as short as it was. Being married to the rumor and having chimpanzee children. Oh, well, baby chimpanzees. They're just as cute as baby Yodas. And baby everything. Space Boy is bewildered when there is a sudden flash. Seconds later, his surroundings and perfect life are burnt to ash. The monocle appears and asks if Space Boy really thought it would turn out all right. Space Boy wakes up and the story proceeds to Hazel and Cha-Cha's hideaway, where Agnes has taken off the shoes out of respect of the seance, leaving him to open to use his powers. Hazel and Cha-Cha enter the room where a seance presumed dead by the duo. A useless space boy and Agnes are held, and reveal to have with them the nuclear explosive codes which Kennedy had given to Hargreaves 17 years ago. The duo activates the codes only to discover that it has a timer. Because don't they all? Seconds later, Cha-Cha pulls out a gun and blasts Hazel's brains out before pulling the trigger on himself. It's revealed that Seance, with God's help, because why not, has returned from the dead, and that he had possessed Cha-Cha, and at the same time disarmed the codes. Meanwhile, at the Perseus building, the spoiled son of corporate millionaire Mr. Perseus is arguing with the board of his corporation on what to do with the fortune that has recently come into his possession. To one of the board members' dismay, he proposes they invest money on some experiments and that anyone who tries to get in his way will be killed. The story proceeds to the corrections department of the office at the end of time, where Carmichael is discussing tactics to the Temps Aeternalis on how they're to finish the job of assassinating John F. Kennedy, which the older number 5 had failed to do. Carmichael reveals the younger number 5 in the front of the room, to which number 5 responds not to bother, and that the only reason they aren't dead already is that he has decided to help. Later that night, Seance, Space Boy, and Kraken meet back at the Umbrella Academy, where Seance appears to be digging up Pogo's grave, like you do.
Oh, yeah.
It's revealed that Pogo wasn't buried under his memorial, but rather a Temps Aeternalis agent who tells him through Seance that number 5 is planning to go back to 1963 Dallas to assassinate JFK, which angers Kraken. Seance, Kraken, and Spaceboy use the dead agent's time machine to go back in time. Meanwhile, back in Hazel and Cha-Cha's hideaway, Body, Inspector Lupo's chimpanzee partner, boy, this book likes monkeys, had a handful of officers are tending to Agnes. Body then hears a beeping sound, and Agnes tells him it's the nuclear detonator, ending Chapter 4 and the world. So, if they don't assassinate President Kennedy before he can give the nuclear codes to Hargreaves, then at this point in time, the world blows up. That's where we are.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought like you said, the dream sequence opening up, that was pretty cool. This is where it I thought it really started to hit its stride. With this issue, because I mean it packs everything that's going on in the series in there. You know, Space Boy wishes he had this life, but Klaus is dying. There's nuclear holocaust on the horizon, and Hargreaves is a terrible father.
So here's the only thing I didn't understand why this subplot was thrown in here. What's with the Mr. Perseus character? Why is he in this, and why does nothing he do seems to matter with the central plot?
I think he's setting up. I haven't read Volume 3. I assume he's going to pop up there, or maybe even be involved with the Sparrow Academy down the line. I think it's just setting him up for a future storyline.
Okay.
Which would work better in an ongoing series than in a sporadic, story told in 6-issue limited series. But I mean, like if you're going back to, like classic old school X-Men stuff, this is or the Elf with a Gun and Defenders, this is, standard comic book storytelling, but you feel like it should kind of have something to do with this story, and it really doesn't.
Yeah, for self-contained, 6-issue miniseries, I feel like I understand what you were saying, because I mean, like, we just read Vision and the Scarlet Witch not that long ago, and there was stuff that was addressed in West Coast Avengers that they dealt with in the Avengers, and stuff kept getting referenced and brought up, and that's all fine, because I actually remember reading those when they were out at the time, back in the 80s and 90s, and these, referencing stuff as part of an ongoing series made sense. Or, as you said, dropping, while you have your main central storyline, that other stuff starts happening in the background to set up stories down the road. That's all well and good. When it's a self-contained story like this, even if these are meant to be sort of chapters in the wide burgeoning world of the Umbrella Academy, this is still a self-contained 1 through 6 limited issue series. Like,
right,
don't start up new shit.
or at least have a something pointing you toward the future. Like the old. Have you ever seen a movie that has a post-credit scene? I know they're very rare, especially related to comics. But do something like that. Give us an idea of what's coming next. You kind of point to the next story instead of assuming we'll wonder who this guy is that took up 2 pages.
Yeah, maybe like a little bubble in the corner that says more on this later, or for more on this, check out whatever the next book is. Or if they don't know that, we will deal with this in a forthcoming Umbrella Academy series.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Something that just tells you, like, this isn't in here for no apparent reason.
I mean, yeah, I assume it's going somewhere, but I mean, it's not like you have to do a lot of work with that. But really, like you said, just something saying, what's Mr. Perseus up to? Find out, and then
yeah,
something like that.
Because I felt this was largely very distracting.
Yeah. Cause I was going back and I'm like, wait, is this guy going to do something? And he didn't. But you mentioned the monkeys, that they like the monkeys in the Umbrella Academy, and I noticed that in the first volume too, that it's just these monkeys, talking monkeys are just part of society, and I can't remember. I always assumed that was because of something Hargreaves did, and now you just have a certain number of monkeys walking around having jobs, and I thought that was a neat way that. Because the Umbrella Academy is kind of about what a life of superheroics does to you. It's not so much, hey, here are the adventures of superheroes. These are people who have had those adventures and suffered because of them. And so stuff like that with just, hey, there's just a bunch of monkeys in the world, it gives you the feeling that there's this bigger world, even though it's not a big interconnected universe or whatever, but it lets you know that they're living in that. Another way they did that was, when they dig up the agent and they start talking about time travel, he goes, well, it's not like I haven't time traveled before. And Kraken says, here we go. He's going to bring up ancient Egypt again. And if this was a Marvel or DC comic, you'd expect a little asterisk and see Strange Tales number 182 for the full story of Space Boy's adventures in Egypt. But it just reminds you and gives you that sense that this is these aren't their only adventures, and whereas with again Marvel, DC, or these perpetual characters that go on for years and years and go through all this trauma, and eventually they kind of get back to square one. These folks, their odometers keep rolling up, and they're not being refreshed. They're they have a monkey body because their original body doesn't work, or they're so psychologically scarred and have been using drugs for years, like Klaus and things like that. He does he does a good job of kind of creating that world and that setting through little details and lines like that.
I don't know. I don't know. I agree with all of that. I just think, like, if you're really trying to work with what does being a superhero mean and how does it affect you psychologically, I actually think The Boys does a better job of that.
It might. I made it 10 issues and I couldn't do any more.
Fair enough.
I thought. I mean, I think the idea is solid, but it was so vile. Just, that was as far as I got. I got 10 issues in, and I'm like, I'm not doing this to myself anymore.
Not into the gruesome, huh?
No. The moral relativism. I don't know. The way I read it was like, hey, it's awful when superheroes do horrible things to people, but if people are bad, you can do whatever you want to them. It's probably an oversimplification, but yeah. I gotta get some enjoyment out of a comic, or at least the chance to be on a podcast.
Fair enough. All right, and we are into the back half of this thing now. All the Animals in the Zoo, issue number 5, March 25th, 2009. It begins at sunset with soldiers marching through a Vietnam. Jesus Christ, a jungle in Vietnam. One soldier is telling a joke but stops when he can't remember how it goes. The two other soldiers are bringing up the rear. One remarks that he's very confused about why they're in the jungle. The other reminds him it is because it's a job to carry a mummy to Saigon, which was a big part of the mission in in Southeast Asia.
Isn't that what Apocalypse Now was about?
Yep, absolutely. It was about carrying around mummified people.
Was there a monkey in that too?
There may have been. The monkey may have been the one that said, "Charlie, don't surf." I don't remember.
Okay.
The first soldier talks about his disdain towards their sergeant, whom he says stumbled out of the jungle 3 years back. The sergeant, the Kraken, appears and says that their purpose for being there is to drag the mummified body of an ancient king back to Saigon so that he can be resurrected and end the war. Because that's how that works.
Yeah, seems solid enough.
Yep. Suddenly, the soldier... I mean, nothing else was working in Vietnam, so suddenly, the soldier who was telling the joke runs back, saying he remembers the end of the joke, but before he can finish the sentence, however, a bullet is shot through his forehead, and an ambush on the Kraken's unit ensues. As darkness falls, the gunfight turns from a typical Viet Cong ambush to an attack from VCV's Viet Cong vampires. As blood is spilled on the carcass of the mummy, he suddenly awakens in a terrible fury, growing to the size of a small skyscraper. Before he can step on the soldiers and start rampaging through the jungle, however, a blast of fire erupts from the sky and crashes into the mummy's head, very conveniently, decapitating and killing him. As the unknown attacker lands, a chimpanzee soldier takes aim, but the sergeant tells him to stand down. The attacker is then revealed to be a bearded space boy. They have a discussion where Kraken asks Space if he's done feeling sorry for himself. He then says that because the seance, after transporting them back in time with the stolen temps at Ternalis time machine, sent them back 3 years before Number 5's and Rumor's arrival in Dallas, he's been in Vietnam because this is the only place that makes sense. Sure. Seance then arrives and takes both Kraken and Space back to his nightclub in Saigon. He then tells them that they're going to get to Dallas in time and shows them a newly built televator. Its construction is being assisted by a young Pogo. Space attempts to inform Pogo of his death, but Pogo stops him, saying that he can't know anything about the future. Seance then hands an elderly lady a baby that he'd been carrying around, and Space asks if it's his baby, to which Seance confirms, much to Space's disbelief. The televator then zaps them through time. The next scene shows Number 5 and Rumor all along with the temps agents in the back of the truck. Number 5 lays out their battle plan, instructing that no one is to hurt his past self, and they just have to convince him to kill Kennedy. They all then bust out of the back of the truck, and as Number 5 marches up the steps, he says, "Let's go kill us a president."
Delightful.
So what do you think of this issue?
I actually really liked it, dark as it was. I mean, we talked about the the Hazel and Cha-Cha brutality. But like, even though sometimes it's a little cliche, I guess, not that it isn't true to, show the brutality of Vietnam, but like where you have the, the kind of innocent soldier telling his dumb joke and then he gets, practically blown up. I mean, that's not played for laughs. That's supposed to be horrible, and it somehow the cartoonish art makes it, just drives that point home. And somehow, even with Vietnamese vampires and a giant mummy, I didn't feel like it was being played for laughs. Weirdness, sure, but so I thought that was I thought that issue was pretty effective. I don't know, I lost some words there somewhere, but yeah, I thought that was cool, and a nice riff on time travel of, sure, time travel is supposed to get you exactly when and where you want to, but if it doesn't work out, this is what you got to do. I'll tell you my favorite part of the issue is when they're in the ambulance and number 5's laying out the plan of attack for him, and he's telling them, red team on me, you know the drill, run in and get killed. And you're used to all these faceless generic agents who, say it must be done. And, you see the guy on the end with his head in his hands like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run in here and get and die. And then even the second guy, even though he's got this featureless gas mask, looks kind of despondent. And, one thing I hate in comics or movies or anything, I mean, is just the body count for the sake of the body count. One of my, I don't know, litmus tests for movies with a high body count is how many characters with a name actually get killed.
Right.
Because if it's just like nameless people and it's supposed to be death for laughs, I can't get behind that. I mean, if something's going to be horribly violent, then I think it ought to be ugly. But I just really liked that detail with these faceless guys who were just, supposed to be punchlines and, just generic NPCs to be slaughtered, and the art gives them that humanity. I just thought that was a really nice touch.
It's funny, I've been watching the pitch meeting series on Screen Rant lately, and he was talking about like the Avengers movies. He was like, well, how in the first movie it was an army of faceless aliens? Yeah. He was like, okay, you know how in the second movie it was an army of faceless robots? Yeah. It's like, well, we're going to do that again, but this time it's going to be dogs crossed with venom.
There you go.
So yeah, I get what you're saying about like the whole, you just, it's one of my problems with like the John Wick movies and like a lot of the, guys punching their way through, through 2 hours of a film, where it's just, after a while it's like you're not in any, there's no tension. He's going to cut through these people like a hot knife through butter. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you're just, so like if, like, I get people's appreciation of the John Wick movies because those are very stylized, and if you're really into martial arts, there's something in the fighting that appeals to you. But if you're like me and you're not really into it, it's just a guy punching people for 2 hours, or shooting people or stabbing people, and you're right. Like, I know a lot of people, like with Man of Steel, the amount of destruction that happens in that movie, people just got numb to it after a while. It just goes on forever, and they destroy everything in Metropolis. And after a while, it just loses its effect on you. Like, if you compare Superman and Zod destroying Metropolis in a fist fight versus, say, like Independence Day, where it's a handful of times they use that, they blow up a handful of cities right, in the first half an hour of the movie, and it's really impactful. And then they don't really go back to it. Like, they imply it's done later, like, oh, the ships have just blown up Philadelphia, stuff like that. But they don't use those same shots again.
Yeah. Well, even in you were talking about the Avengers and the faceless enemies, but even I think Age of Ultron came out like a year after Man of Steel. I forget the exact timing, but in the final battle in that, they kept emphasizing, hey, you got to save these people. That's what we're doing. And I felt like they kind of wrote that in exactly as a commentary on Man of Steel. Like, hey, DC, our heroes care.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. That was definitely like a studio note. Like, hey, one of the big complaints about Man of Steel was they killed way too many people. Like, make sure you make a thing out of the Avengers saving people. But to their credit, they also made a point of doing that in the first movie. I mean, it's a whole thing with Captain America, and it's to like it's to like show him doing Captain America stuff. But at least it was done.
Yeah. Well, and that waitress that ended up with like 2 lines originally, she had like a whole subplot with Captain America saving her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. We got off on a tangent, but the point is, I like showing there's consequences to violence rather than just happy fun time. Let's spread their brains everywhere.
Murder is fun. Rivers of blood.
Yeah.
I like this. I like this issue too. At first, I was like, "Why are we in Vietnam? What's with yet another side quest?" And then when I realized what it was, especially after reading the summary of it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I get this now. This is actually pretty fun." All right, last issue, Evan. Here we go. Woo!
Yeah.
The world is big enough without you. April 25th, 2009. In Dallas, a young-looking number 5, along with a group of Temps Adonalis soldiers, are attempting to convince a much older-looking number 5 to assassinate JFK. Many Temps are murdered. We lost a lot of good horses that day. Many Temps are murdered in the process, until one finally manages to wound number 5, who has gone against his order, as his younger-looking self may be killed in the process. The Temps inform number 5 that there has been a change of plans, at which point Space Boy, Kraken, and Seance arrive to assist. Space Boy asks the younger number 5 where Rumor is, to which number 5 responds, "Nowhere where you can reach her." Space Boy picks him up by his head and threatens to pop it if he doesn't talk. Space Boy then orders the older number 5 to do what he came here to do, assassinate all the other shooters who were involved in the Kennedy assassination. He then leaves via time machine on one end of the dead Temps. Number 5 then reveals that killing him won't save the president that of every murder he's committed. Kennedy is something special. With the help from Rumor taking Mrs. Kennedy's place, the assassination is carried out. The story proceeds to a hospital where a shocked Mrs. Kennedy is being questioned and asking questions of her own. A disguised Rumor exits the hospital and enters a time machine disguised as an ambulance, where the rest of her siblings were already waiting. Spaceboy is led to believe that in exchange for her voice back, Rumor would assassinate the president. Spaceboy responds with disappointment. Rumor then reveals had she not done what the Temps had told her to do, they would have shot and murdered one of the Academy's biological mothers. She also reveals that he and number 5 are in fact twins. She further tells Spaceboy that she only did it because she loves him. The ambulance takes them back to the present time, to where, to their surprise, everything remains the same, to which Spaceboy leaves the team again, and Carmichael is present. Carmichael states that everything the team did were for corrections, that the point of everything was to maintain the status quo. He also reveals that they truly saved the world as a team this time, as due to the assassination of Kennedy, they prevented him from giving Hargreaves the missiles and nukes which Hazel and Cha-Cha had stolen and used earlier in the series. Number 5 then destroys the fishbowl head, in which Carmichael is kept, and as payback for placing the genes of every killer and every murderer inside him, he swallows Carmichael. Yum. The Academy parts ways again. Seance visits a bar using a jukebox, plays a song which matches the chapter's title, The World is Big Enough Without You. Rumor returns home to comfort her sister Vanya, implying that she's forgiven her for her actions in Apocalypse Suite. Kraken looks at an old picture of him and his unit from when he and his brothers were in Vietnam. The whereabouts of Spaceboy are unknown. Number 5 eats ice cream. That was actually my favorite part of the book. Number 5 eats ice cream on the sidewalk with his dog. Reaching for his pocket, he takes out the small earth piece from his missing diagram from the beginning of the chapter. Yeah, that's like the only thing I want to say about this is, like, Carmichael shows up with ice cream, and it's like, ugh, I'm an adult man. And then when it's all over, the last thing you see is number 5, like, does anyone want ice cream? Like, this is what I mean by, like he shifts back and forth between, old Codger and baby Stewie.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, to get back to what I was saying about the foreshadowing, that's now 2 presidents that Rumor has assassinated. Well, one was a monument, but she defeats the the living Lincoln Memorial by saying, "I heard a rumor you got assassinated," and of course a giant statue of John Wilkes Booth appears behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, because one of the things I was thinking as I was reading this is, I'm like, if you were buying this, wouldn't you be wondering why it was called Dallas? But you know, like the assassination, the Marilyn Monroe chimp, they were kind of hinting at it even before they revealed it. Yeah, I did. I just assumed that Allison was the twin. So that was you know, kind of a cool reveal that it was Luther. And then, you know, Luther's spent, you know, this series and the last one moping about how Allison could never love him. Then he finds out she does, and he's just appalled because she did something so unsuperheroic.
Yeah,
kind of a gift to the Magi thing.
Yeah, it was interesting, very tragic. Also, like, but her explanation of, like, I didn't feel like I had a choice. It was either that or not exist, or one of you wasn't going to exist because a mother was going to get shot. Like, I guess they'll resolve it later at some point. But like, maybe the shock of it now, he's like, yeah, I don't know if I can deal with you.
Yeah,
but I can't imagine it's going to stay that way.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure they'll pick it up. I did think the part where he talked about how Kennedy was such a special case. He's an idea, and what you can't take down with bullets, you have to take down with words. And then the reveal of rumor, like that. I guess that worked, you know, from a language standpoint. But it's like, no, they could have killed him another way. I think it was just Five kind of being a jerk and taunting Luther a little bit. But it was a pretty cool reveal. I don't know. I just think it's weird how we and I don't think Gerard Way like played, you know, Kennedy's death for laughs or anything. But I thought it was weird reading this, how, you know, we're so kind of desensitized, like I mean, not violence in general, but the Kennedy assassination. You know, there's an episode of Seinfeld about it, and you know, it's just like this thing that was this major world event that we're all just kind of like, yeah, that happened. Let's do a meme. I mean, you know, I read the Stephen King book. I watched the Quantum Leap Kennedy assassination episode, and it's just weird how you react to some of this stuff. Like, I remember the book Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I quit that about halfway through. One, because I was bored out of my skull, and two, because it really bugged me that they were taking like actual tragedies in a real person's life and real people dying, and going, no, it was vampires. But then I read this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so they did the Kennedy assassination thing. I don't know. It's weird how that stuff hits us sometimes, or doesn't hit us.
I don't know. I think time heals all wounds, and so like there's always talk about like what can you do with 9/11? You know, at what point are you allowed to make jokes about it? At what point are you allowed to use it in fiction? You know, as part of something else. So I think the Kennedy assassination is just one of those things, like 9/11, you know, for a more contemporary example of there are major tragic events throughout history in people's lives, and that after a certain amount of time, it's kind of out there for people to play with.
Yeah. I mean, I just, like, I remember writing it as I was reading this, like when they did the thing with the Lincoln Memorial, like, oh, haha, John Wilkes Booth got him. And I'm like, I don't know, man, that's kind of, and then I'm like, I'm reading a story where the entire climax is the assassination of Kennedy, and I'm going, about a John Wilkes Booth joke. I mean, you know, I don't know. It's just kind of strange.
Are you like a big history fan? Like, are you somebody who is very much like the preservation of history above all?
No.
Okay.
No, I just, I don't know. I just, like I said, sometimes the real tragedy for fictional humor doesn't hit me the right way. Even though, I mean, you know, like I said, if the John Wilkes Booth thing really bothered me that much, then I should have been bothered by the Stephen King book, by the ending of this, and by the Quantum Leap Kennedy episode. But I don't know. I just that was more my own introspection. Like, why did that bother me, but the rest of it didn't bother me as much?
Yeah, I can't say that it bothered me, though I also have vivid memories of like when Bush was president and everyone hated Bush. Someone wrote a novel that heavily implied this is how I would kill George Bush.
Yeah,
stuff like that. And it's like, I think I'm kind of numb to it, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a Family Guy episode where they're purposely going out of their way to ruin James Woods' career. So Peter, who is supposed to be James Woods, goes on David Letterman and pitches a comedy about 9/11. And he's like, I play a window washer, and oh my God, it's 9/11. What do I say? It's kind of that pie in the face humor. And a plane down. I was like, God, I can't remember the line, but it's like, it's like two pies in the face and one plane down in the middle of in Pennsylvania. And David Letterman's like, oh God, But like Family Guy, like knowingly playing with the tragedy of 9/11, probably pushes a lot of people's buttons, and then other people, it's like, yeah, it's out there, the thing to make fun of, like anything else.
I mean, like I said, I wasn't complaining about it so much as I just thought it was weird the way I reacted. Like, I was like, I don't know, man, that's a little much. And I'm like, do you remember what you're reading? It's like you either go, okay, well, I don't think that's funny, but and move on, or you put that down and be like, I'm not touching any fiction about presidential assassinations, and I'm not going to do that. So
yeah, I think that the story exists on such a bizarre level that because I get what you're saying on the level of if something is going out of their way to be disrespectful, then I could see wincing and sort of like, I don't want to deal with this, because I get that way too.
And I don't think it was disrespectful, but I just like I said, that was me in my notes going, what? Why did I have a reaction like, oh, okay, that's a cool story, and yet at the beginning I was like, I don't know, man, that's a little insensitive. That was just me exploring my own weirdness. No, I don't think. I mean, the only scene I really had a problem with was the Hazel and Cha-Cha intro, like we talked about. That I'm like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this.
Right. Yeah. Just to finish up with that point, like, if I get the sense the author is going out of their way, which some comic book authors do, I can't off the top of my head, because I know I've talked about this in the past, like just on the subject of Christianity, where you clearly get an author's agenda. Mm-hmm. Where it's very anti-Christian, and they're going out of their way to be anti-Christian, and it's not like a Gnostic approach to Christianity, to where, well, let's ask some questions here, which I would be okay with. It's the Christianity it's the fucking Bill Maher approach to Christianity, which is or Jim Cornette. Christianity is dumb, and anyone who's a Christian is dumb, and if you believe in Christianity, you're dumb. It's like, that's unnecessary. Right. And those kinds of books I don't particularly like, and I have definitely complained about that a lot over the course of doing source material. But some of these guys need to sort of check their biases at the door, like learn to write a little bit more even-handedly, or you want to write just as an example, you want to write an anti-Christian screed, be my guest. Good luck, good luck selling it to that niche atheist comic book fan.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like there was I'm a huge Peter David fan, and he did a comic called Fallen Angel. It ran for like 30 issues at DC, and there were some religious themes and things like that. And I love Peter David, so I bought every issue of that. And DC canceled it, and he relaunched it a couple years later at IDW. And like the first story arc with IDW, spoiler alert for those of you who are 30 issues into Fallen Angel but haven't read the IDW one. Do you mind?
Please.
Okay. His big reveal was that God's sick and tired of us all and just wants to die. Now, Peter David, one of my favorite writers, but that was not the kind of thing I wanted to read, so I quit buying Fallen Angel.
Right.
I didn't go like, oh, Peter David, you're horrible. I mean, because Peter David's written respectfully about religious characters. So, but I just, I was like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Still read a lot of Peter David stuff, but so you can have your opinions. Your beliefs can be different from mine. But like I said, when it's just haha, your beliefs are stupid and everything about you is terrible, I'm not going to listen to that for very long.
Yep. It's a big
But I'm
part
not
of
sure
my-
how we got off on that, because I don't think, like I said, I didn't necessarily appreciate the way he depicted God, but my headcanon for that is that Klaus's powers were what brought him back, and that's just how his brain was dealing with it. So,
all right.
yeah.
Overall, like I said, it was an enjoyable read. I don't know. I'll continue to do this as long as the show exists, and there's something I need to read for the show for the purpose of podcasting. This isn't that much this doesn't feel that much like homework. I don't know if this is something I would read on my own. And I think that's kind of where I landed with this was, I think to push myself to read things a little out of my wheelhouse and for the purpose of podcasting, I was happy enough to read it. I think if I don't do podcasts or I'm not watching the television show and it's just like, hey, you should read this really surreal book by the guy in My Chemical Romance, I'm probably going to say no, especially after Apocalypse Suite. I don't think I would have made it through Dallas, but I'm glad I did. Your final word, sir.
I'm curious to read the next part of it. But I thought it started out slow, but especially around the fourth issue, it really picked up speed. I thought 5 and 6 were really well done. Even if maybe it wasn't all to my taste, but I thought 5 and 6 were the examples of what it can be at its best. It just took it a little time to get running. I'm not sure if I had been like buying it monthly, I'm not sure I would have made it past the first issue or two. But that's the good thing about the trades. As much as I love single issues, sometimes you can a slow start can get you out of a series that you really would have enjoyed. So I think overall it was it was an interesting read. Pretty good. I'm curious to see what they do next, but I'm not I'm not like I can't wait to read it. I'll get around to it at some point. Maybe if you decide to do volume 3, I'll read it then.
I think we're definitely going to do volume 3, though. It looks like we might have to just do that just to do it, because it looks like volume 4, Sparrow Academy, is later. It was hinted at the plot for season 3 of the show, though it doesn't look like Sparrow Academy actually exists yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point with the through volume 2 of the series and season 2 of the show, there are actually more episodes of the show than issues of the comic. I know there's a volume 3, so that puts the comic back on top by a little bit. But
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Regardless of what they're using as source material, I said the thing for season 3. Regardless of which, when season 3 comes out, we will do volume 3, Hotel Oblivion.
Yeehaw!
All right. Evan Bevins, you're on that social media thing. Actually, before you give your social media stuff out, I have a question for you.
Okay.
It's a little off the beaten path, maybe a little personal. I don't want to weird you out or anything, but I'm gonna dig deep here, and I'm gonna ask you some personal questions here about who is the man behind the man, and what I mean by that is, what are you listening to these days? What's on the old record player?
Let's see. My and this is like the most excited I've been about a vehicle. I bought it used and I've had it for a while, but it's got a 6 CD changer, so that's exciting. So I don't have to keep switching the CDs. I've been going back and listening to my favorite band. This may dismay you, but Hootie and the Blowfish.
My wife dragged me to a Hootie and the Blowfish concert a few years ago.
That's awesome, man. You wouldn't have had to drag me. But,
I don't know if you've heard my other podcast that I do, but I'm not a big Hootie fan.
Yeah. No, I have not yet found the Venn diagram of a topic on Metal Hammer of Doom that's an album I've listened to. Occasionally, it's a band I've heard of, but
what's the hardest? Now I got to know, what's the hardest band you listen to? Like if if the hardest thing that I listen to is like Cannibal Corpse or Napalm Death. What is the napalm death of your music listening?
Wow. Let's see. Well, if you don't count that one Evanescence CD I have, it's Bon Jovi.
Living on a prayer, huh?
Hey, there you go, man. Hey, Living on a Prayer got my kids to watch Star Wars, so.
Which do you like better, the Atreyu version of You Give Love a Bad Name or the original?
I didn't know there was another version.
Do you have any idea what Atreyu is? And don't say the character from
the Never-Ending
Story.
A band named after the character from the Never-Ending Story?
That is correct, sir. I'm guessing you've never heard of him.
You know, I think I have.
Okay. Well, all of this is. By the way, I'm not laughing at your love of Bon Jovi. It's funny. That's funny to me that like what's the hardest thing you listen to? It's like fucking Bon Jovi, man, New Jersey.
No, I understand.
I love Bon Jovi. I have definitely been in the car with my kids bumping it to like some Slippery When Wet.
There you go. Yeah, like I said, I owe Bon Jovi for getting my kids to watch Star Wars, and because there's a YouTube clip where they edit R2-D2 into the whoa on Living on a Prayer, and after my youngest watched that like 100 times, then we found just somebody cut a Living on a Prayer music video with Star Wars scenes, and she kept going, "I want R2-D2," and I'm like, Daddy has 8 movies on the shelf with R2-D2. Let's watch one of them instead of the same YouTube video.
Why do you have 8 movies?
Well, Rise of Skywalker wasn't out at that point.
Okay, so 3 prequels, 3 original...
The 2 sequels.
What do you call it? Okay, the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the math on that, and I'm like, wait, what?
Look, I don't appreciate Revenge of the Sith. No, I'm kidding. But that's actually something that I need to chronicle on my long delayed but now finally active blog. Is my kids' transformation from refusal to watch Star Wars to, guys, occasionally we can watch something that's not Star Wars, but why?
My kids have not been bitten by the Star Wars bug. My daughter, as a feminist icon, likes Rey, and then every time I try to get her to watch any of the movies that Rey's been in, she's like, "Meh." And my son could give a shit less. However, they're all about the Fast and the Furious movies. Like, I tried to get him to watch. I put the first 2009 Star Trek on for him the other day because we were going to talk about it with David Wright, and they got through the first. First of all, my son midway through the movie was so bored he started tantruming. I looked over and I'm like, I just see him like slamming his fist into the couch. I'm like, what is the problem? And he was like, this is so boring. I'm like, oh my god, this is what everyone considers the stupid Star Trek. So
yeah, we haven't gotten into Star Trek yet. I'm more of a casual Star Trek fan.
Mm-hmm. I tried different things with them. I remember one night I took my son to I think it was Cub Scouts, and then we came home and we had like an hour or so to kill before bedtime, and his mom and sister came home from what they were doing, and so I was like, hey, let's watch a movie, and we had just started watching the Fast and the Furious movies. I didn't want to watch the next one without his sister, especially because he's such a Japanophile, and the next one's Tokyo Drift that we're on. So I watched that without her. She'll cry, but
can't do that.
No, but I'm like, what's comparable to the Fast and the Furious that my son would like, because he seems to like stuff with car chases. And I'm like, oh, let's watch Gone in 60 Seconds. He loved it. He was like, stealing cars is the best. I'm like, all right.
That'll never come back to bite you.
No, not at all. All of this to say...
Have you tried Smokey and the Bandit?
I need to rewatch Smokey and the Bandit to make sure it's okay for them, because I'm not...
Well, yeah, that's true, because I watched it on TBS over and over, and then I finally got it on DVD, and I was shocked that Jackie Gleason wasn't saying scum bum repeatedly.
Yeah. So between...
So maybe not.
So, like, the Cannonball Run would be a good one, too, but I don't, other than what's his face? The fat comedian who became a chef.
Dom DeLuise.
Thank you. Other than Dom DeLuise dressing up as a fat superhero, like, I don't remember if there's stuff in that movie that I don't really want them to see. Which is really weird, because I took my daughter to go see The Matrix because I forgot it was rated R. I just go, whoops! And weirdly, like, excessive violence I'm okay with, but, they might see a boob, and I don't want that.
I don't think there were any boobs in The Matrix.
There were no boobs in The Matrix. That was fine, but like Smokey and the Bandit and Cannonball Run, which are great films to watch if you've got kids that are into big car chases. I got to go back and rewatch them to make sure that there's nothing that I'm not like, this was okay back then, but not in 2021. No. Not when you have kids.
Yeah, that's true. I watched Justice League with my oldest, and
which one?
Had not. Oh, the original. I still haven't laid out the 4 hours for the Snyder cut, but I did not realize the Flash dropped an F-bomb, and I tend to watch movies on closed captioning, so it was really obvious at home. He's looking at me like, "Why would you let me watch this?" And I'm like, "I didn't know."
Oh, isn't that the best when the kids call you out on your bad parenting?
Yes.
Because I do that all the time. They're just like, "This is inappropriate. Why are you making us watch this?" Oh, shut up. You're gonna watch Apocalypse Now, and you're gonna like it because Charlie don't serve. Now listen, all of this to say 4 minutes ago that if you're like Evan Bevins and you like the Bon Jovi and the Hootie and the Blowfish, and really, who doesn't? You should check out our link for getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network to get a free 30 days of Amazon Music, and you can download and stream all the Bon Jovi. You can get Slippery When Wet. You can go to New Jersey. We're halfway there, Evan Bevins.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to hijack your promo into a meditation on parenting.
No, I'm always up for a meditation on parenting. But yeah, I literally wrote down the time of 1:14, and I was like, well, 4 minutes later, we're finally there. That's okay. The good people at Amazon, they can listen to us talk about parenting and what movies are good for what kids till we get to the promo.
You know what?
It's fine.
If you get enough people to try Amazon Music for them, they will love you always.
Yep. They won't be, that the time doesn't quite match when I actually started the promo. It won't matter. Not a lick. All right. With that said, that is the end of our podcast here. Always a great time having you on, Evans. I enjoy talking to you, and we got to bring you back for more stuff. You and I we are ships passing in the night. It's very hard to get you on here because you have a lot of commitments and I have a lot of commitments, and the schedule waits for no man.
Oh, well, I appreciate any time you work me in.
We'll try to do that more consistently. And you're going to be part of the Superblog team up.
I am. Yes,
Are you
indeed.
You're still going with Dr. Bong?
Oh yes. I have. I've gone through all of his early Howard the Duck appearances, and I'm now making my way into Deadpool.
Have you ever read Deadpool the Duck?
No, but that's on the list because Dr. Bong pops up in a few of those.
Okay, so I think other than Umbrella Academy, I've been wanting to do Deadpool the Duck for a few years now. And there hasn't been a Howard the Duck or a Deadpool movie to where I thought we could work that in there. But I think on a free night, you and I might have to talk some Deadpool the Duck and just throw it up whenever.
Okay, hey, that works for me. I'm always happy to inform people that Howard the Duck was not only a George Lucas bomb, was one of the most fantastically weird Marvel comics that ever there was.
I read the series with him where he pairs up with She-Hulk. I enjoyed that. One of the more recent runs.
Yeah, that was Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah,
that was good. But you got to go back and read the original Steve Gerber. I mean, I loved what Zdarsky did with him, and I've seen other good stuff, but I've heard people say Howard the Duck is one of those characters that like only the original writer truly gets him. I don't know if I go that far, but the Steve Gerber Howard the Duck, and if you need a little extra incentive, he does fight Kiss at one point, or at least kind of stare at them dumbfoundedly.
So that whole thing is collected in an Epic edition, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was also an Essential edition, but yeah, there's an Epic. I think they just released a new omnibus one too.
All right,
yes, Steve Gerber, Howard the Duck. Steve Gerber is just one of my favorite comic writers, and I don't think I read a thing he wrote, or at least realized I did until after he'd passed away. But Howard the Duck, he did the first 8 issues of Marvel 2-in-1. which was just magical. I will get off of this tangent before we go so long you have to do another promo.
Fair enough. Tomorrow on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, myself, and speaking of comic books and going too far, myself and Alexis Haina will be doing a comic script for Jiu-Jitsu, which was a graphic novel that was turned into a movie by the same people who did the graphic novel. This is yet another weird thing where it doesn't seem like they ever finished the book, and they were like, fuck it, we'll just do a movie.
Wouldn't be the first time.
We got an old flashback to one of our very, very first Metal Hammer of Dooms that's re-airing this Wednesday, since we don't have a live Metal Hammer of Doom. We actually reviewed Death Album 3 from Death Clock, from the cartoon Metalocalypse. I don't know if you know this or not, or if you're familiar at all with the show, but they not only released one album, not two, but at least three different albums, and by the time we got around to doing a podcast, they were up to their third one. So, Death Album 3 by Death Clock from Metalocalypse. And then myself, Jesse Starcher, and Alexis Haina will be talking Umbrella Academy Season 2. And then on Thursday, myself and Pat Mullen wrap up our boxing series. We're going to be talking about Modern Times, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and a host of others. Hopefully by then we'll actually have a date confirmed for Joshua Fury in Saudi Arabia. Please, August 7th. It's the one of the three possible dates, Evan. It's the one that I'm A, not working, B, not traveling with my family. It's all I ask for in life.
That doesn't seem like an unreasonable request.
That's just what I'm saying. On Friday, our Flashback Friday, Damn You Hollywood, will be our re-airing of the Wolverine review, which is the one where he goes to Japan. And Jesse Starcher will be dropping his conversation from way back when with Jason Teasley, where they review the Mortal Kombat Legacy YouTube shows. And that's just in time for the new Mortal Kombat movie. Oh boy.
Synergy.
Absolutely. And then on Saturday, our flashback show will be the Long Road to Ruin, where we did the X-Men trilogy. X-Men, X2, and X-Men Last Stand. And then lastly, it's the Oscars this Sunday, April 25th. I don't know if you watch the Oscars at all, if you give a shit, but
I used to.
Yeah, I used to not at all, but I've learned that people pay attention on Twitter if you hashtag the Oscars, so now I have to pay attention.
And there you go.
So we are re-releasing an old On Trial we did, where it's the first ever On Trial Civil Court edition, where we debated the merits of Forrest Gump versus The Shawshank Redemption. And the central question is, who should have won the 1995 Oscar debate? So you can check out all of our shows from last week. We just dropped a Long Road to Ruin for the Spock trilogy. That's Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home. We had a whole bunch of wrestling content last week, plus Resident Alien, the book, and the show. We did an Unspoken Issues, a re-airing of our Surgical Meth Machine to coincide with the 5-year anniversary of that coming out, a re-airing of Star Trek Into Darkness review, and I keep making a joke that this is the 87th time we've re-aired this, but actually nobody on this feed's ever heard it before, so check out Jesse Starcher's syndicated source material for The Killing Joke with Ronnie Adams and Jason Teasley. All right. Go ahead and plug your stuff.
Okay, well, I did mention I finally got a blog up and running. You can find it at *51.blogspot.com. The title was *51 because the other titles I came up with were taken. My most recent entry, I'm still working on getting a regular schedule, but my most recent entry was actually a protest of a recent Unspoken Issues poll, because Jesse and Chris criminally left out Ravage 2099, which was Stan Lee's return to monthly comics, and a guy named Paul Philip Ravage, who did environmental stuff. Anyway, so I finally got that out of my to read bin and read it, and now that's a thing I've done, and I wrote about it and taunted Chris and Jesse online about it. So I do write for newspaper. In addition to writing actual news, I write about the comic book origins of TV shows and movies. I think my most recent one was about Invincible, which try to do that without spoiling the big plot twist in issue 6 or 7. You can find that on newsandsentinel.com. And I did write a web comic that one day will finish issue 3 and even get issue 4 out. You can find that it's a support group, about a support group for people with lame superpowers, and you can find that on Webtoons.
Once again, thank you, Evan Bevins, for joining us here on Source Material Live. I'm Mark Radulich. We'll see you next week. Be well, be safe, and behave.